Hello, so happy to have two wonderful women on the podcast today. For anyone listening, I'm Megan Mores Gurzon. I'm the host of Get Real, an own person podcast. And I'm here today with Nandini and Vaishnavi. And I'm so excited to have a conversation about something that has really resonated ever since we've been speaking about the passion project they're working on. And it's really all about human connection. So I'll let both of you introduce yourselves and give a little just intro of how human connection has resonated with both of you.
Sure. Maybe I'll start. And Megan, thank you so much for having Vaishnavi and me here. Um, I call myself a connector at heart. I do RevOps as my daytime job. I'm a connector. In social settings or in work, I'm always trying to figure out how two people can work together and create something that goes far beyond just two by two. It's a force multiplier. Um, we have been working on UnStrange, our passion project that we started last year, and Vaishnavi and I, we go back to undergrad days back in India. We'll tell you a little bit about how we met through the course of our conversation.
So, well, thank you so much. And I'll just say, Anandini and I go back to our last company we worked together, and I had participated and kind of led our women's group. And Nandini, you were so instrumental in supporting me during that time, and we kept in touch. And here we are. So, connection. We've kept our communication going, and now I'm happy to be involved in this project.
Yeah, and Megan, thanks for having us. And so I'm Vaishnavi, problem solver at heart, and I've been in product engineering. That's my day job. But for the most part, for solving problems, you've got to connect with people. You've got to understand what is it that you need to solve, right? Like be it a systems solution, be it a process solution, whatever be it, right? So I think over my career, I've recognized that it is the relationship building and the connections that matter. I'm an introvert, but I consciously exercise the connection mindset because that's so important for what we do. And where Nandini and I met, like as she said, the story is interesting because we've got different personalities, but it all melded into the common problem that we wanted to solve.
It was a perfect melding of of your gifts, and I think that's so smart that you have always seemed to understand the relationship building aspect of problem solving. That's huge. So I'm excited to talk more about it, and specifically in this conversation, we're going to focus on what we're calling the myth of infinite friends, which in particular, I'm thinking more social media connections where actually right before we started, we were chatting about how many Facebook friends do you actually have? And I thought that was interesting to compare that number to how many people you talk to on maybe a weekly basis. So I'm really excited to get started. Cool. So the first question I have to go off of that idea of the myth of infinite friends. So that's the idea that social media gives the illusion of so many, abundant connections, but genuine connections often missing, right? So, how did that idea and that insight spark the initial beginning of UnStrange and what UnStrange is at this point?
So let me start by our story, Vaishnavi and my story. And this was last year, somewhere in January, that I was actually going to be in Vaishnavi's part of the world. And I reached out actually to a common friend of ours, saying, "Hey, I'm going to be in your neck of woods. Could we catch up?" Which led and Vaishnavi, I have been connected on Facebook for many years. I mean, look at us. We've had multiple years under our belt after our undergrad years together. We've lived lives, migrated from India. We now are in US, and I found it very special with that one. I had reached out to a common friend who had then connected with Vaishnavi, and Vaishnavi said yes on a work day, post her work, to come meet me. And travel, get ready, travel, get in the car, come and say yes. And the kind of conversation that we had there, which wouldn't have been possible had we just been on Facebook and, texted with each other,
Mm-hmm.
led to, I was thinking of loneliness, having experienced loneliness in my life through my periods of migration in cities in India, then the international migration, and also watching my mother, who we will lace through her experiences of connection. She is now 80 years old, and her life and her enthusiasm of how she connects with people. I was trying to solve on how can we get people to connect with each other meaningfully.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought it up in our conversation. And Vaishnavi, why don't you take it forward and say your side?
So yeah, it was an interesting moment, right? Like it was one of those over the work week is so hectic, but then you've got to make space for these connections, for these impromptu connections. Actually, this spontaneity of connections is another topic in itself, But so it was a spontaneous moment where I said yes to my common friend, and I said, let's go. We'll go together. It'll be fun. We haven't caught up, she and I were actually in the same town, so it was like multipliers, and we both will get a chance to converse. We travel together, and then we meet mentally, right? So that was the spontaneity of the moment where I said yes, and I shouldn't anticipate what the conversation would lead to at all. And what was very interesting was over past several years, it was more again my problem solving nature, which was just looking at here we've got so many Facebook friends and so many social media connections, what have you. And during COVID, it was still like people were reaching out individually because they needed to meet.
Mm-hmm.
This was what was a really sparking curiosity. Why is that? Like we are actually so connected. This world is supposed to be so connected, but just looking for the meet in person was driving a lot of that. Like there are a lot more people reaching out. So that was kind of the back of my mind. And then one thing you mentioned was like, huh, there is something that I want to solve, and looks like you're thinking on similar lines. Let's chat. So that's what led. For sure this wouldn't have happened, without meeting in person and having a little deeper conversation than just here's what's life like,
Yeah, no, that's so interesting that it was kind of like you were living that experience by being at like kind of right place, right time, and being in that moment in person together, having a
Yeah.
conversation. And then you agreed on that similar idea because you were living it, right? So that's really, really interesting. So it seems like you kind of both were just like, yes, let's do this. And you felt, was it like a gut feeling or was there any question? I'm curious, like, if you both were all in right away.
It was curiosity for sure from my part, right? Because it was like it was an interesting problem to solve. And when Nandini was like, "This is what I've been thinking about it," and I call it unstrained. I think she had it in already as unstrained as a verb, and
Okay.
I was trying with this kind of strange, right? Like, and so we had quite a few conversations after that, right? Where it was very exploratory in nature. What does that look like for you? What does this look like for me, right? And it was also a moment of reconnections, right? So we were talking about, I remember sharing another social media platform, and she looked up my profile and she was like, okay, let's do this exercise of reconnecting, right? So we did a lot of experiments just through our own conversations on what that reconnection look like. Uh, so yeah, it wasn't a single vacuum moment, but it was more a curiosity-based exploration that led to us doing this together.
Got it.
Yeah,
And
and
have,
I also want to add, Vaishnavi, for, we met in January, and I think there was a period of a couple of months that went by that we hadn't really connected, but took it up again. Like we kept connected, we stayed connected on that topic, and then February, March was the opportune moment where we said, you know what, let's just start meeting thrice a week for an hour and see where we go with this. And here we are. We are talking about mindsets. We are talking about a platform. We are talking about stories that are being shared with us without really knowing. I mean, yes, there was this idea, but it takes a lot to put an idea into action. And it just started with us enjoying that moment, feeling energized by our connection, and actually coming back to it in a couple of months saying, hey, we spoke about this, let's build on it a little bit. Are you still there? And I think that's what we talk about in the mindset as well, that continuing to keep up and reconnecting is important.
Yes. And I love what you said about and both of you were saying that it came out of curiosity and that you were energized and you genuinely wanted to play with it and learn and talk and experiment. And that's when authenticity really happens. And at Own Person, I'm all about, helping clients bring out their most authentic versions of themselves. And when you're really when you understand that something is so important, like loneliness or people feeling disconnected, and then you build off of that and see how it evolves, that's when something really interesting and special can happen. So that's really cool. And I mean, that's exactly what I've been witnessing ever since chatting with you about the idea.
Yeah.
And the core of it, right, is understanding how to reconnect. So for anyone listening, how would you describe how UnStrange can help them reconnect?
I think it's the what UnStrange is supposed to help you with is actually helping you remember the connections, because many times, your people who are your in your recent conversations, or your best friends, that you call them, they're very top of mind, but so many connections continue to atrophy over a period of years as the shared experience disappears. Imagine you and I work together, Megan, and then it has been over a year that we haven't worked together, and you went on maternity leave. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank
Your
you.
baby's adorable. And then, so there was a gap. Now it could have just gone away, and our connection would have atrophied. But that ability to believe that yes, the other person will be interested in connecting with you, taking a small micro conversation and giving into that curiosity, or that small intention, if you will, that has come in, saying, I wonder how this person is doing, and building on it, and not letting that go away, and days and months and weeks. Oh, you know what, I thought of you because I did something, and then that moment was gone, and I never got to you because life happened.
Yeah.
And that is what we are trying to capture, to get the self-awareness of such moments, and create somewhere, like create an avenue where you can hold yourself accountable to follow up on that connection and stay connected.
Mhm. I love the way you described that and just our personal experience. When you were speaking, I was imagining if we never spoke again, if I never spoke to you again and we were just LinkedIn friends, connected
Yeah.
on LinkedIn for years after working together, but that didn't happen. And I think I felt that, and maybe you felt it too, where we had some kind of spark and there was a connection that we
Yes.
kept going, and we both had the kind of courage to put ourselves out there and say, I want to still be in touch with you. So and I think of, a lot of people, if you don't take a chance, life can pass you by, and it's kind of like, well, what if? But I'm so glad that when you go for those moments in life, it can bring so much. So I really love that you're focusing on this here. Um, and I wanted to touch on how we were talking about the number of connections on a platform like Facebook and how many are actually real friends. And the first thing I think of, because you're both an undergrad, right? So I think of during college, I think was the time where I added the most people on Facebook. That was kind of like the more Facebook time than Instagram days now. And so I have all these people that I met in passing at a party, or like people I didn't really know that I've now seen their children on Facebook. And it's just so funny that I'll probably never see or talk to a lot of these people again. So, but then of course I have, lifelong friends that I'm connected with, and it's a mix in terms of my connections. But I'm wondering if there's a particular moment or experience that made you realize that having hundreds of friends online didn't equate to an actual connection. Was there a turning point in that idea?
Yeah, I think I'll start here because what you said about the when you add, regardless, it's like for me personally, I added folks into Facebook much later. Like it was, yeah, Facebook was at the time that I had just moved to US. That's when it was kind of picking up, and so there was this kind of snowball effect that I connected with somebody who I knew was in the US, and then like there's this system, just it just expanded from there. But regardless, it comes right from this moment where you take the social connection. And as I was saying, like in my case, I wasn't having a lot of people on Facebook. It's 250, right? It was not this, every acquaintance, but with really people that I had implicitly connected with. Like I remember the moment, right? So it wasn't folks that, oh, I think I know you, but it was folks that I do know you.
Okay.
Yes, yes, I wasn't feeling connected. And the example, the turning point that I'll share is very close friend of mine, college friend. We used to probably talk for hours every single day when we were in college. We stayed in touch, right? Like we continued to that we're going into each other's lives for the most part. Um, there for the big moments. Then I'm there, she's in India. So I was thinking I was keeping in touch when I was looking at, oh, I've been tracking the social media posts and this WhatsApp group that we have. So I thought I was connected. And I went in there once for vacation, and as I normally do, I'm like, okay, hey, let's catch up. And this was after a couple of years or something. And when I caught her, I found out a lot that was going on in her life. She was going through a very dark patch in her marriage, and it just shocked me. Like it just shocked me to the point of where how in the world did Arthur not know about this? Like I'm your close friend. Like how did I not know about it? Right? Like I felt so guilty at that moment for not being there, and I think that was the moment where we realized, like, this type of social media is not enough. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it's good, to an extent. Like, it's kind of probably interesting to say, oh yeah, I saw this movie last week and you saw it, and this is your reaction, and oh, isn't that funny? Yes, okay, it's fine for those kind of superficial moments, but for the deeper what's going on in our lives, like no, it just doesn't do it.
Yeah, because people, I mean, to talk about marriage problems, that's more of a face-to-face conversation, not like you're on Messenger. So it's important to try to facilitate getting together. And it's difficult when you have friends all over the world, not even the country, but the world. So I completely understand that.
Just to add to that, Vaishnavi talks about WhatsApp groups, and I have a WhatsApp group that I'm part of. School friends. Now, think we're teenagers that we're together. We did high school together. We're about 70, 80 of us in that WhatsApp group. Now, you think that that's a community tight enough? And there are conversations, there are some important conversations that do happen that require, we were a girls school, so women of a certain age going through, premenopause, all of these things do get discussed at times, or menstrual cups, if you will. All these things do get discussed sometimes if someone is vulnerable to talk about it, but most times it just gets relegated to one person or two people remembering birthdays and a series of happy birthdays or happy anniversaries being sent out. Most times before I started working on UnStrange, and sometimes even now, I feel the importance of my wishing a happy birthday is it's meh. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
like a check mark in my head that I have wished, and that's about it. So I declared on the group last year that within a week span of your birthday, I'm going to give you a call.
I
and
love
I'm going to
that.
just talk to you, not on the birthday, because we haven't, these are not my best of friends, but they're friends still. But Facebook friends, if you will, or WhatsApp friends, we had a shared experience, different memories. And I have been talking to these women now for a short period on my weekend, catching up. I have spoken to so many of them, not everyone, in the last 8 to 9 months, but the Megan, the kind of stories that have come out, and I have a quiver full of arrows, if you will, of life experiences of, a failed marriage, if you will, and migration, raising a child by myself, or also being away from my child, all of these things. And I say, let me start with my journey from when we last met, which was in the Trent High School, to now. And all of these turning points of my life, I bring up, I am vulnerable,
Hmm.
which gives the other person the confidence to share their story. And it's unfortunate that we haven't been part of each other's lives to support each other through the tough times. I feel, in some form or fashion, feel guilty a little bit, but not really. I mean, it's also the fact that today they can find themselves in me, I find myself in them. That the competition of high school, which is, oh, what did you end up doing versus not.
Yeah.
Sometimes reunions can get a little competitive, but to know that it just didn't it I'm not alone is so important. And
Hmm.
had we not been working on UnStrange, I wouldn't have been so dialed up on the importance of a one-on-one conversation, and importance of even not being the best of friend, but hey, how was your birthday? How was your,
Hmm.
yes, the lifetime can be spoken about, but what did you do? And just celebrating them and cheering them on as a person who saw each other without the titles, without the wherever we are now. I think it has been an incredible gift that I have given myself over the
Yeah.
last year.
Well, that's the hugest benefit right there is that you're getting so much out of it yourself. And that's just,
Yes.
you can easily, effortlessly show how it's impacted you. And just hearing you speak about that, you can tell that it really means a lot. And just thinking about, rather than just saying a quick happy birthday with an exclamation point, asking someone, how was your birthday? Like that means a lot. If even if it's not your best friend, if someone takes the time to genuinely ask and check in on a birthday or what you've been going through. And you mentioned having people to rely on when you're going through hard times in life and having that sense of that you're not alone. That's everything. I mean, I've shared with both of you, and I've been vulnerable as well that, I lost my mother over the past year, and it's been kind of a gift that I've been closely in touch with her best friends. And so I've been making sure I foster those relationships. So, I mean, using Unstrange, I could totally envision that piece of, what I want to focus on being a big priority for me because it's just, you feel like you still have that extended family, you still have that love. So I totally get that. I think that's really special. Awesome. So once you acknowledge that, what we're going to call illusion of all of these friends, what compelled you to shift toward building something more intentionally with real connections rather than what we were saying was more superficial conversations?
I think this was this was an interesting. Like I was listening to what you were talking about, your experience and what Melvin was saying, and when I started, as I said, it was like a outward looking problem solving. That's where I started, right? Like to say, so there is this problem that exists in society, right? So uh, there is this very big problem to solve, and it doesn't really impact me. I'm pretty comfortable with my small group of friends that I connect with once a week and here and there. So I'm like, I'm not lonely. There are people who are lonely out there, and I only want to help people. So it was, yeah, I want to help others. Okay, that was where I was when I started. So let's say I started with this totally thinking that this is where I was.
Hmm.
I was doing all of these experiments, right? Like being vulnerable, being courageous, going in there and trying to reach out to somebody that I hadn't connected with, right? And I was like, yeah, I was curious. When we were doing this experiment, when would we want to connect? Who would we want to connect? Like, what is the friction? So there were all of these questions that we were exploring with. As I went through this, right, it was a realization that it's not the people when most people would not even acknowledge them, maybe even more actually, right? But regardless, every connection is going to make you feel energized, right? So almost everybody that we spoke with, uh, they needed human connection. Well, like that's a given. So when we are like this is so relevant for every single person. There are very common collective points. There are very common mindset that we need, and we talk about the mindset of who we are. Is when it was like yes, there is so much commonality. It's not like, oh, there is just this persona that we need to solve this for. When we solve this, it is applicable for every single individual. Like there is a spectrum, uh, and regardless of where you are on that spectrum of loneliness, as we call it, like regardless of where you are on that spectrum, whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you have a full social circle or not, it's still is going to make a difference, right? Like that intention of reaching out, the habit of prioritizing connecting. All of that, is so relevant to every single person. And that's when we were like, okay, there is something that we really should be looking at, helping us and everybody through this journey.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I 100% agree that it's a universal human need. And I think not everyone realizes that. And like you said, not everyone prioritizes that because we're just like going through the motions, people are busy, and then you often haven't connected. But that does so much for your emotional health, mental health, your body, your energy level. And it's just, you know, I am lucky that I have family nearby and I get to at least have conversations in passing with them very frequently in my typical week. And if I didn't, my life would be a lot different. So when you get the chance to have more conversations that are deeper, I think that just completely impacts your life positively.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like, I was saying, like, the deeper further, like always, I'm of the kind like trivial conversations kind of will not energize me at all. Uh, uh, I realize like it's not about being this perfect or there needs to be this very deep conversation. Sometimes just the meeting, just the conversation itself is enough. Once you acknowledge that, then different happen. There are moments where deeper
Yes.
happens,
You
but
open the
it starts with this imperfect, spontaneous, just being there for each other.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast is called Get Real for a reason. The trivial is not how I like to work. I like to try to, naturally uncover what's real, what's authentic, what means something, and that's exactly what you're doing. So that's really cool. Awesome. So just to keep going, I'm wondering how did you translate that into a practical framework, or how did you kind of move that with intention into what is now UnStranged?
I want to ground ourselves on a little bit of stats, if you will. Okay, 56% of Americans have said they have felt loneliness at some point or the other. We have these tools, social media. Let's talk Facebook, WhatsApp. All of these primary social media platforms were built to keep in touch with friends and family. Today, on an average, 2 hours and 16 minutes are spent on social media. And yet, Dr. Vivek Murthy, the 19th and the 21st Surgeon General of US, has announced loneliness as an epidemic that we need to work on. Okay, it's in spite of all of these platforms that we have, so we needed to get to something that was beyond what social media was offering. I took a quote down which I wanted to read here. That Dr. Vivek Murthy says on page 13 of his publication, My Parting Prescription to America, when he handed over as the new administration came in. He says, relationships are the connections we build with friends, families, neighbors, co workers, and others we encounter. Healthy relationships where we feel seen and where we can be ourselves can be powerful source of joy and support and can be buffers of stress. They can improve our performance at work and school and help us make sense of the world as we process our lives with one another. How beautiful is this?
It's beautiful.
And that connection, that one-on-one connection that can happen by doing this, not a curated filtered world. And yes, that there is a lot of positive that social media gives. I wouldn't have known what people are up to had I not known, had I not seen posts. I refer to posts that people have put out there on these platforms regularly in my conversations, but it doesn't leave with a like or a comment, and you're taking it beyond that on what that picture may have meant or what moment was it that a person was trying to share, and build on that and create that story. And I think that is where we are going, where we are creating an extension from a social media which is one to many to create a one is to one conversation platform with definite micro conversations. Loneliness follows a U curve. Another study done in Northwestern University says it's a U curve. You see it in young adults, and then it declines over a period of time where you're actively engaged. You have your work, you have children, you're playing the intergenerational responsibilities as you grow older. But at 60, it starts peaking. And the point is, what do you do during this time where you are extremely busy? You don't really have time to maintain all of these relationships, but how do you become more intentional in your conversations to build that one-on-one connection that can help you beyond when you're 60 and beyond? It's literally a social muscle exercise, so that we have practice. Like, the number of times we've told our users, just pick up the phone, call up. But no, we now have layers of, oh, can I text? Maybe the stories we tell ourselves. It's no longer a society where we just randomly pick up the call, phone, now which should be like this and not like this anymore. Pick up the phone and call someone. Use the phone for what it is meant to do.
Yes.
And say hi. No agenda, no networking, just here saying hi, thought of you. Call me back when you have a little time.
And that's so refreshing. And you've actually done that with me, Nandini, and I'm like, oh, I love that. She just wants to check in. I'm just saying thank
Yes.
you, just out of the blue. And it's just so nice and refreshing. And I'm actually curious, has there been anything that surprised either of you about how people have formed their habits around the meaningful connection and maybe unexpected behaviors that you didn't think you'd see?
Yeah, I think I'll start with those are what you're talking about, the micro conversations and, just picking up the phone to talk, right? It's super interesting. I was recently in India and I was observing India, everyone is completely comfortable with just coming at the door unannounced, right? Just calling. It would be spontaneous moments. Let's just meet. Whereas in where I moved, it's very, very scheduled, right? Like, so there is this mindset of I think it's called polychronic and monochronic, like where we're really looking at monochronic is that we're really looking at everything being scheduled, be planned. Like it's all about pushing and sticking to the time and sticking to what you need to do. And whereas polyphonic is it's there's a little bit fluidity, right? You can just do whatever. And so what was surprising is I think that's true client in our house, you experience both of this. And the more that you become kind of this, probably if you prioritize just that, life becomes a little monotonous. So a little bit fluidity comes with this mindset, and that mindset, what we found was people were okay with it, right? Like we say to ourselves, well, it's going to be weird to just pick up the phone and call. Maybe, yes, maybe there will be a couple who will be like, I don't know why, but there's still some curiosity, so they still pick up. And at the end of it, we're still energized of having the conversation, right? So what surprises is we tell ourselves stories, but it is like everybody's totally happy to just talk.
Yes.
My big aha moment was the fact that 8 minutes was enough. When we heard Simon Sinek has spoken about 8 minutes and how 8 minutes is a drop everything and be with your close friend. It's a cry for help, and Simon Sinek talks about it a lot in his conversations. We kind of extrapolate that to say, why wait for something to happen? Is 8 minutes going to be enough for a meaningful conversation? And I have been practicing it regularly. I'm mindful of how much time I'm taking off another person, especially when I'm spontaneously calling. It gives me the courage to actually say, all I'm asking for 8 minutes. I think I'm okay
Yeah.
to actually pick up the phone and call. And it is enough. It's okay. So long as it's done on a periodic level, not eight and done, but and periodic as well is 3, 4, 5 months, maybe 1 year, however, but you've kept in touch because you've taken the time to say, hey, I thought of you. And you have the next 8 minutes. Let's build on what we spoke about. Let's check in with each other on special moments, difficult moments, things that are going through, and be there for each other. Robin Dunbar, an anthropologist, this is way back when research said 150 connections is what we can have, meaningful connections. And, I wanted to do this exercise with you guys. How many Facebook connections do you have? Megan, you said about
Yes. So it's just under
500?
900. Yeah, 855. So definitely more than 150. And I don't
Yes.
know all of those people, to be honest with you.
And Vaishnavi, how many
Yeah,
do you
I
have?
have 250, I'm sure it's book, right? Yeah,
250.
yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be honest, and I have 1,200. Okay. So my starting point is really everybody and beyond. If you think about your recent phone call list, like people who you've spoken to, and I will excuse mine with the unstrange mindset that we've been using. Vaishnavi, I don't know whether yours has changed. It's gone up a little bit, but
Strange kind of
yeah.
moment.
What would that number be? Take a guess. How many people do you regularly keep in touch with?
Yeah, like calling on the phone, I would say maybe five or less.
Five.
Is that
Okay.
bad?
That's a
Regularly.
0.58%. Vaishnavi, what is yours?
But there were stuff that freelance strange. Okay, I think it's important to call that out, right? Freelance strange, there are people that I would regularly meet, right? Like colleagues with whom I'm having these relationship conversations, right? Like relationship building conversations. It's not transactional, but it is more about some deeper conversations. And the people that I volunteer with. I do a bunch of volunteering, and so in all of those moments, my social kind of bucket was getting filled. So it was not even the percentage of the free effect because some of these weren't even on pay, to be
Right,
honest.
right.
So the kind of percentage and slice the forensic field was really centered on how I was cultivating relationships within the spectrum or within the sphere that I was already kind of
Right,
engaged and involved.
right.
But first and streams, it was really like, okay, let's go back to folks that you're connected with and what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and I just want to say, when thinking about the spontaneous phone call, I think it's really cool if you just happen to catch someone and they're free. And it's like, okay, I caught you and it works. And that's kind of like how you both met. It kind of just worked. And with the planning and the scheduling, that just takes longer. And it's
It
just,
takes longer.
I personally cannot stand that process of getting, because maybe I call five people regularly. I think it might be more than that. But I do plan with friends and get together often and text a lot. And I kind of have to force myself to do that because it's a lot of work. And I feel like some of my friends have just stopped doing that because they can't even handle it. It's just too much.
It's too much work. I mean, you have a
One of the unstrange experiences was like, okay, let's pick, as we were experimenting, let's pick somebody who is not spoken to, and let's reach out, right? So I tried this. I tried reaching out. I sent the text. There was an acknowledgement, so I knew that there was a desire to connect, right? So that was established. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be resilient. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to periodically keep checking. And I think 5, 6 times. So I started this a year ago, right? And 5, 6 times I must have reached out. And it didn't happen. The moment it didn't happen, right? Like there was something else going on in her life, and that connect, that moment didn't happen. And I was like, I'm really giving up, but I'm straight. I'm going to be resilient. I'm still trying. And I listened to her. It took a year. A year later, I connected with that person, right? So definitely there are going to be these moments where it's going to be frustrating and you're going to be like, we are giving up. And yeah, this is definitely a problem that we are thinking about. You know, it's real. It's relevant, right? Like it's really difficult to figure out because you don't know what's going on in their lives to say, okay, you're morning free in the evenings or and then time zone things, right? So there are all of these. How do you find the perfect moment to talk is definitely a problem out there that we are exploring and how to solve. But yeah, I have to share that funny story because it took a year and then we finally connected and then it was good, obviously. And yeah, but it's not easy for sure.
It's not easy. And I mean, you kept trying, which was very admirable. And sometimes the stars don't align. Sometimes you're just different
Italian.
places in your life, and that's okay. You don't have to force it, but you kept putting an effort out there for a reason. I get that. I think that makes sense. I'm kind of curious for the folks that you've been speaking to about UnStrange and have been using what we're calling the UnStrange way, right, to interact. Have there been any stories or feedback that really stands out as something that has been transformative?
I think of this very early adopter who, we did a focus group and then we're doing a pilot. That's what we're doing. And an early adopter who didn't know me saw a co-worker that we had only crossed paths once in a conference, that too. And she saw me talk about this on LinkedIn, signed up for the focus group, went through 8 weeks of challenges that we were giving them once a week. And I happened to have a unstrange moment. Like I picked up the phone and called her recently, and she had this story to tell of her unstrange moment where post work she was, you know, typical relaxation, which is scrolling on social media, reels, watching reels. And I think something about Unstrange came up, and she said, I'm going to reach out to my friend I have lost touch with. And she did that. And she said, it was only thanks to Unstrange that I knew that I could pick up the phone, call her up, and it was the most beautiful reconnection that she has had. She was so eager and excited to tell me, and that story has stayed with me. And there have been so many others where people, spontaneous calls have been started being referred to as it was my unstrange call, and that's very gratifying.
That's so cool. I love that. And, like we were saying, just a quick phone call like that could mean so much to both people. And the fact that she was so excited to tell you, that's what it's all about. And kind of to go off of that, Are there, if you could kind of distill the unstrange mindset into, certain words or principles, what would they be and why?
Yeah, so I would start with like there are some which are inward looking, right? So there are three principles which I would call as inward looking, which is courage, resilience, and vulnerability, right? So it's all about what you need to kind of build that mindset when you're looking within your own space, right? So you need to be more courageous. I need to be more resilient. I need to be vulnerable. And all of these are really important because uh, it doesn't start without that. And it doesn't start without acknowledging I'm going to make that phone call and whether they pick it up or not. Like, let go of the fear of rejection. It's okay. It's fine. Maybe they don't want to talk. It's none of us. Like, these are the stories that we tell ourselves. And vulnerability is a huge thing. And I, by nature, very private person, right? So being vulnerable is hard, and but you recognize through this that it's important. It's important to share those personal stories because that's when the connect happens. That's when you realize, yes, there's something deeper.
Mhm.
So for me, inward principles, right, like these three, which resilience and vulnerability, I would definitely kind of key in on those. And I had the little bit experience of this when, as part of UnStranged, the experiment that I had done last year was a road trip. It was something that we had always wanted to do. And I did that as a road trip of just connecting with folks that I had lost connection with, right? So it took courage out that it took my ability to just post on social media saying I'm going to be calling folks, reach out, right? So there was a little bit of that courage just to, and vulnerability just to put it out there. Of course, resilience also comes through it. So that, that trip just kind of encapsulated these three principles for me. And there's more, and I'm beginning to share the others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
And these are a little bit of like unstrange the moment, and then how do you make the unstrange moment more meaningful? And we tap into respect, we tap into authenticity, and we tap into vulnerability as the things that you bring in, the attributes that you bring in into your conversation. I was going to be in a very difficult situation, relationship, or found myself and had used my courage to say yes to an event with a connection that had, let's call it, transformed over a period of years. There was a new definition to be given to that, and I realized that vulnerability was not something that I could wanted to tap into, or at that point in that relationship. But I amped up my respect and empathy so much on every word that came to me, every sentence that came to me was responded with empathy. Oh, you must be so excited. You must have felt this. It's making it about that other person, or just purely being in the present with amping up my level of respect for the occasion that I was in, respect for people, and respecting myself actually,
Mhm.
to know where my boundaries are and those I would not allow anybody to cross. And that, I think, was my lived, we've been talking about the unstrange mindset, and for about now 8 months or so, and this was my lived experience of knowing, oh my God, am I being dishonest with the attributes? And I said, no, I can actually amp up couple of them and rely on them. So we have an easy way of remembering it. It's called crave, CRRAVE. Crave a connection is how you'd remember it.
Yeah.
And that's your unstrange mindset, because it is not easy. It is exercise, practice, regular practice that would get you to be more socially connected. It's not that, loneliness is an other extreme. You may not feel lonely, but social connection, that need for connection, is so universal that either it's your need at that point or it's somebody else's. But being there for someone else is also as important as it is for them to be there for you, or whichever way you start, outwardly, inwardly, you need it, other person needs it. I think it's just a beautiful way of staying, reminding yourself to stay socially connected.
I think that's so beautiful, so well said from both of you. And I'm just thinking that, like you were saying, we've already mentioned that it's so important to be connected, but not only to help others, but for yourself. So if you're willing to commit to yourself, to loving yourself and nurturing what's important in life and really getting the most out of life, that's when you can prioritize it. So completely
And I
agree.
think what's interesting is with how we also recognize the different personalities, right? And each one is gonna have more courage. Somebody's going to be less vulnerable. Somebody's going to be more respectful. Like, we all start from different places.
Hmm.
So if you just imagine us being on a particular kind of graph of these attributes, as you keep building on the ones that you're building on beyond your comfort zone, building on those attributes that you're not very strong with, it just makes you whole, right? Like it gets those aspects. And you start being more connected with people. So that's just
Yeah.
been very interesting when we've seen how the journey where everybody has been at, right? Even within the team, we talk of people who are participating, but even within the team, like we've got another person who's like, you know what, I am not normally courageous, and I went ahead and spoke to this person. I exercised my arm strength. So kind of see that with people who we're doing this with. We see it with people that we're even just talking about with, like who just heard about like family or friends, and we just start talking about the unstrained mindset, and it's something is there for everybody. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And I think the more you talk about that unstrange strange mindset with your friends and your family, the more they'll practice it. And I'm curious if there's any other kind of real world unstrange moments that people have shared with you that have stood out.
Yeah, you know, I see myself as a myself. I see myself and my mother, but I see my mother as the living example of unstranged. By the way, you know, she is almost 80 years old. She has practiced the number of times she has taken the time to go meet people after her full-time work. Me and my brother, while we were growing up, she was a professor. She made a lot of connections that have served her so well since I lost my dad and she lost her partner 3 years back. But the connections keep her so alive and thriving. She's not scared. Her English is good, but I think it's really good, but the accent might be a little tough. But here, she comes here. She told us not to buy a single family home. She said, buy a place where I can see people. She's made friends here in Boston.
Oh, that's
She
great.
goes to my brother's place in New Delhi. She goes in, talks to people, makes friends, is vulnerable. Like she's like my living example of what Unstrange is built off of.
That's so cool. And I mean, you were mentioning over 60, it's really important to have connections established so that you can be set at that stage in your life and still be thriving. That's just, yeah, that completely represents exactly what you're talking about. Kind of just had one more question, I think, for the both of you. I'm curious, what advice would you share with someone who's maybe feeling overwhelmed or disheartened by social media, kind of like what you're saying, the endless scroll type of hobby that people tend to have, that just want more genuine, intentional connections. What advice would you give them?
I would say just prioritize one moment, one connection. Just start small. Just start with setting intention to connect with. You're scrolling through social media. It's fine. At some point, you're like, okay, I've scrolled through this. Pick one of the people that you've seen a story about. Just pick one and make that connection. I think just prioritizing one connection, one moment is where it will start.
Hmm. Yeah, because that's not overwhelming. You just start small.
Yeah.
I do want to reiterate that it really only takes 8 minutes. Start there. Don't do more. Don't think I don't have the next 30 minutes to talk. Be clear about asking and be clear about the 8 minutes and stick with that framework, and you will have made a meaningful connection.
Yeah, like just saying, can you spare 8 minutes? And then seeing what happens. That's all you need to do. I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much. And again, I completely am behind everything you're working on. I think it's so important and so exciting. So kudos to both of you. And I'm just so happy to be kind of part of this journey with you and watch it unfold. So thanks again.
Megan's so proud of what you're building. Own person is just
Thank you.
special. Thank you for all your help. And this has been so exciting to be talking about Unstrange with you.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, take care.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you so much.